Hello and welcome everyone to a meeting with Rank the Vote. Today we're going to talk about parties. So often we talk about meeting new people, educating people we haven't met yet, growing the movement that way. But another wonderful way to strengthen the movement is to share with your friends why this issue is so important to you and have a good time at the same time. So that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm Celia Nolan, the training director with Rank the Vote, and I'm joined by our executive director, Eileen Reevy. So we're going to be chatting and sharing some of our materials with you so that whether you are the head of an organization, an organizer, someone who loves party planning, or just someone who likes being at a party and could be the host, we'll have materials for you and information and ways to make it easy because this is something anyone can do, whether there's a campaign in your state or not, or even a state organization for electoral reform in your state or not. This is something you can do. So as people are coming on, I would love to see where you are. This meeting is being recorded, but our chat will not be shared. So don't worry, we won't be giving away personal information. But if you can get to the chat, go ahead and let us know where you are. And I'd also be curious to know, what are events that you like to go to? Do you already throw parties for your friends? Would you love to see your friends more, but there just isn't a reason because everyone's busy? Um, this is something you can do with an in-person gathering, and it's something you can do remotely. You can do this over Zoom. Even though we don't have to meet over Zoom, this is a way to include your friends from all over the globe. And you can also do hybrid meetings. So we will talk about all kinds of different ways to throw your party and have an impact in the movement. And we're also very lucky today to have someone who knows probably more about house parties than anybody else. And that is Kyle Bailey, who has an incredible track record of winning campaigns and has been behind about 1,000 house parties and about 300 of them for ranked choice voting. So I'm going to love this conversation with Kyle. And also, while you're in the chat, you can also put any questions you have for Kyle, questions you have for us. We can get as detailed as you want. And if we don't get to your question, or if you think of something after this meeting, or you're pumped and you want to get started, we're going to have a meeting next week at this exact same time with myself and Rank the Vote's National Organizing Director, Anna Keller. We are going to be on a meeting live. It's just going to be an informal discussion, so you can come with your questions, start party planning, anything at all like that. So as we go along, I will drop the link to that in the chat, and we will also have an email that goes out after this with all kinds of information to help you get started. And in fact, I think let's get started. So I'm a little bit talking about house parties, but Eileen, I'm going to throw it to you. Can you talk a little more specifically about what we mean by house parties in this context?
Yeah, thanks, Celia. So house parties are ways that you can have a fundraiser to support ranked choice voting work or other electoral reform work. And the key thing is that they are a fun fundraiser. This can be a relatively informal gathering with people that are already your friends, already in your network, and it's a way that you can have them come together around a shared mission of you can say, hey, I really care about this issue. I've been volunteering for it for, a year now. I'd really love if more people in our community understood it. Please let's come together, let's talk about it, and if you're on board, let's help raise some money towards it. So it can be really a variety of ways that you can approach a house party. And it doesn't have to be strictly at a house party at a house. It could be coming together at a local business or restaurant and bringing people together that way if maybe you don't have the space to host. It can also be something that you're doing with a group of people. So if you and your 3 friends that have been working on ranked choice voting in your city, if you all invite 20 people to come together, and one person has a great house that they can host this in their yard for a summer event. You can really collaborate and find different ways to work with people. If you are thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine bringing together my friends and me personally making the ask, that's okay. I bet someone else that you're already working with would be a little bit more comfortable with that. And maybe you're the person that can has the big list of the right people to ask, or that you have the perfect place to host. So they're equal parts educating people about the reform that you're working on in your community and raising money to continue that good work. I haven't had a part of quite as many as Kyle with over 1,000 there, but the first time I worked as a fundraising director on a campaign, we raised a tenth of our budget through house parties, which was $120,000 just by going out to people over a 6-month period and asking absolutely everyone we knew and that cared about that issue in our area to help us raise money. So it can be really impactful. And we have states within our network that have raised tens of thousands of dollars this way. So it can be a really impactful thing. And that's the money that can help you start to maybe hire your first organizer in a state.
Great. I'm so glad, Eileen, you talked about the different scenarios because really this is your party. It's an issue that you care about. It's your friend. So it's not, um, anything to be uncomfortable about. This is like something that you can be proud to share with your friends and they would love to support you because they care about you too. So, they may not come to your party because they're initially that excited about ranked choice voting, but they're excited about you. So they're going to be there. Maybe there's someone who, wouldn't be comfortable being a direct advocate themselves, but maybe, they're happy to help you with that. And, they're thrilled to know someone who is able to do that. So it's really a way to pull people in a fun way and have it however you want. So I'm looking at the chat here and I'm loving these ideas. So I know often I've been to these where you might be at a bar or you can get people's favorite beers, have the beers for them at the party, rank the beers. I love this idea. Have the price of admission is bringing someone, between the ages of 21 and 30 in this example. So that's great, right? You get your guests, you get your plus one, and then you have a mixer of some people who are familiar and some who aren't all around the room. Um, or there we go, rank the appetizer. So there's some fantastic ideas already coming from this group. And the party itself usually will have some sort of a presentation and a fundraising pitch. Nothing too heavy. We keep it social and keep the party flowing and always end on a positive note. And you may be surprised how many people you know and how much they like you and want to help you in what you're doing. So some great ideas in the chat here. But Kyle, I would love to hear from you. Can you let us know a little bit about your background and what you've done with all those house parties?
Sure. Thanks, Celia, and thanks, Eileen, for having me join you all. Hi, Kyle Bailey. Just a little quick background about me. I managed the campaigns that won and protected ranked choice voting in Maine. I've managed other ballot measure campaigns for campaign finance reform. I served in the state legislature in Maine and worked on open primaries and early absentee voting. I've worked in this space for about 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in the LGBT equality movement. Was part of the first campaign that won the freedom to marry for same-sex couples on the ballot box in the state of Maine, and have worked in Democratic politics off and on my entire life. My first job on a campaign was right out of college, working on a lieutenant governor's race in the state of Georgia, where I lived at the time and grew up. And I think on that campaign, I think I was personally responsible for about 200 house parties. So I got immersed in the culture of doing these types of events pretty early on, and have found ways to make them not only successful from a fundraising perspective, but from volunteer recruitment and political support and all the other objectives you have in your campaigns or organizations. These house parties can feed those goals in a lot of different ways. And so I always try to think about how they integrate with the other components of your effort and your objectives. I'm going to put my contact information, excuse me, there's a fly flying right around my face. I'll put my contact information in the chat box I can ever be helpful to you directly if you have questions or are looking for resources or things like that. that I've used that I'll talk about right now. But I just thought it'd be helpful to run through some best practices that I've learned in my 20 years of doing house parties for candidates and ballot measures and nonprofit organizations that I think are key touchstones for me. And then I'll shut up, and I'd love to answer any questions folks have and participate in the conversation. So let me run through a couple things first. I think having goals are really important around most of the work we do, but particularly events. People respond to goals. And so I think working with your event host to come up with goals for your event, that might be total amount of money raised. It might be total number of donors or gifts. If it's a very grassroots event, it's about people power. It might be total number of attendees. It might be a combination of those things. And I think one of the things I really like to do with events whenever possible is to build a host committee. It will help you reach your fundraising goals. That may be a host committee that's $25 or $50. It might be $100. It might be $1,000. You have to figure out what the right range is for the people that you're anticipating and where you are in your effort to bring people in. But I always think there's money on the table to be had before an event. And the great thing about people financially investing, whether it's an event or your organization, right, is once they've given money, they are more likely to engage in the other components of your effort. And with an event, if somebody gives money to join a host committee, that increases their likelihood that they'll forward the invitation to their network and invite their friends in too. So you're expanding your reach with your event. I would say on invitations, a couple things I've learned the hard way: don't send out invitation materials without first having your host sign off on those materials. I almost lost my first job that I'd mentioned a minute ago about because I had a team of doctors I was working with on an event and said something out without their permission. So just better to have everybody sign off on anything that goes out with host's name on it. I oftentimes use save the dates and invitations in my events. One or more of those might be a letter format where the host gets to explain why they are supporting this particular cause or issue. It's a great touch point, particularly if you're pursuing a campaign now or in the future, to raise the education level and sort of cast a wide net with your invitations. And it's a personal appeal about why this individual supports the issue. It's almost like think of it like a letter to the editor, but an invitation format. And then I oftentimes will also use a save the date. So oftentimes the save the date comes first, right? And then the save the date has the who, what, when, where, and why. And then I'll follow up with an invitation. The save the date will oftentimes include information about how you can join the host committee that I mentioned before at financial levels. The follow-up invitation might include a working host committee, so host committee information. And then as you do your email reminders about the event, you continue to build that the list of hosts for your event to just show more momentum and excitement that's growing for this event to draw more people in. And now you could do the same thing with special guests, adding them to invitations along the way via email to just help build momentum and energy for your event. I often track and calendar all my actions around events because it can get really complicated really quickly when you're trying to do house parties, to make sure that you have calendared like when you're going to send your save the date, when are you going to send your invitation, when are you going to make RSVP phone calls. And if the host needs to edit or provide feedback on the save the date or the invitation, make sure you schedule that in as well to your work plan, so that you can make sure that you stay on track. Because it's very easy with events to get behind very quickly and then you don't want to have to postpone an event because the host didn't get you the recruitment list in time, et cetera, right? That's a bad habit that you don't want to start. I mentioned RSVP phone calls. I always say cast a wide net with events. I get about 10% turnout at events. So if I want 20 people at an event, I'll invite 200 people. And what I tell a host is, are there 20, 30, or 40 people from that universe that you're willing to personally invite to come and to follow up with them via phone with an invitation? It's usually people who have greater capacity to give financially, or people of influence who having in the room and getting them sold on your issue is going to be key. That might also include elected officials, who you want endorsements or support from, having them in the room, have them focus, and then really recruit and train one or more volunteers to make the other calls. And I often offer, as a staff person or campaigns that are staff, I often offer to do research on finding phone numbers for people if they don't have them. But a lot of people already have their lists, and so they put them I ask them to put them in a spreadsheet. Sometimes I'll give people a template to say, put the name here, the phone number here, the email address, the address, whatever you have, and make sure to give people ample time to fill that out. But our willingness as organizations to make those RSVP calls takes that load off their plate and helps to drive up participation. I often do those 3 to 5 days before an event. If it's a house party, or up to 2 weeks before an event if it's a major fundraising event. A couple things other things that I've learned, event box. It sounds cheesy, but I keep a big Tupperware box with me when I'm out doing campaigns. Even if I'm not the events person, I keep an events box in my car because you never know when you need one. And it'll include all your flyers and your literature, but it also includes blank name tags, sign-in sheets, etc. And if you're printing anything particular for an event, so for myself, I make sign-in sheets for each event, and then I often do printed name tags as well. So I'll pre-print name tags for RSVP guests, and I go a little bit above and beyond. I bring a printer to an event, and I will print name tags on the spot for people. It's something that I do with the organizations with whom I work as a consultant. It just helps to show a level of professionalism with your events that people take notice of. That your operation isn't just using Sharpies and markers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just something that I like to do. And then I wanted to just wrap up around the presentation itself. There's an old political saying, and Neil said it all the time, keep it simple, stupid. So we have a tendency, we are passionate about ranked choice voting and other reforms. We have a tendency to want to walk people through all the different pieces of how these reforms work and why they're important, and try to answer people's questions, anticipate questions, and answer them in the presentation. It's a bad idea. So I have learned this the hard way, that the right approach is crafting and delivering a 5 to 7 minute presentation that, in the case of ranked choice voting, is what is it? How does it work? Why does it matter? And really being concise. And when it comes to an issue like ranked choice voting, a lot of people have a preconceived idea that is complex and confusing. So if you take 20 or 30 minutes to explain it and go through a presentation, guess what people in that room are going to think? Oh, I got it, but this is really complex and confusing. I'm not sure my neighbor will get it. And so when you're short and brief and you hit the main points, and then let the conversation flow, people start that point of that conversation, the Q&A, is like, oh, that's not as confusing as I thought. And let them bring up the questions that they have. And some people I find with this reform, as soon as you start explaining it, have burning questions in their minds, and they just tune you out until they can ask their questions. So better to be short and sweet, especially if people have been working all day and are coming to your event and have had to listen to people all day long. So short and sweet is better. I do use poster boards at most of my events. Some people will do PowerPoint presentations, whatever works for you. That's just more technology for me to pull around. And candidly, if I'm presenting to senior centers or older groups, sometimes the technology is not crowd friendly. So I find that having some poster boards, and oftentimes they are one poster board that literally shows the sample ballot, right? And I also always use a 3-way race with the 3 rows and the 3 columns. And then I might have a poster board front and back. One side is one election result that sort of shows the transfer of ballots in a 2-round process, where the plurality winner with ranked choice voting also won in the majority second round. And then the other side of that presentation shows the vote transfers where the person who won the most votes in the first round ended up losing because the person narrowly finishing in second surpass them right in that round because they're the more consensus candidate, and that's helpful. And then I may have one other poster board. For example, in Maine, we had 9 out of 11 governor's elections in which candidates won without a majority, and it was great because for us it was 2 independents, 2 Democrats, and 2 Republicans. So we just showed their picture and their election results, and it was just very clear that it just reinforced it was nonpartisan and it was a problem that had persisted. In other campaigns I've done, a map of the state with tiny little pictures on it and or quotes, people who are endorsers that show the political, geographic, and demographic diversity of support for the issue. So, it's just a sort of additional poster board you can do. Finally, and then I'll shut up, making a pitch for donations and volunteers at the end. This is really important, and finding the right person who is prepared and capable and willing to do that is very important. And maybe you're event host, it may be a member of your organizational team, or maybe somebody else who just has no fear of asking people for money. and explaining why it's important. You've heard the presentation, you've heard the Q&A, and then speaking to the urgency of the issue and the impact that needs to happen in the window in which you're pursuing either a campaign or a pre-campaign or a mini campaign to get your city to do local ordinance or whatever the case may be, right? That you have a strong pitch. And that I always, if there's a challenge match opportunity, maybe it's specific to that event. Maybe somebody's like, I'll match the first $500 we raised tonight. That's always great. It motivates people to give. Maybe you have an ongoing challenge match for your organization. And I will oftentimes put people on the spot, especially if you have a challenge match, who's willing to give tonight? Raise your hand. And I will walk around and put a donation envelope and a pen in people's hands. Get the donation while people are there. Much easier than having to follow up on a pledge. So that was a whole lot of information shared really fast, but that's some best practices I've learned, and love to have a conversation.
Well, Kyle, you have this down to a science, and I love that you have like the box in your car. So if anyone's like house party right now, you can be like, I'm on it. That's my picture. Like you can have like traveling roadshow of these house parties. They sound great, and ready for all circumstances. And also, it really struck me, you said, like prepare their story almost like a letter to the editor. Rank the Vote does monthly letter to the editor trainings, and one thing we point out to people is there's a limit to the size of letters that will be published. Sometimes it's like 200 words, and sometimes the hardest thing is getting it short and distilled. So, as you were saying, right, like keep it simple, keep it short. Um, and also, it shows that this is not just a theoretical structural change that's just a neat idea. It's something really personal to people and something really personal to your friend, to this person who's during the event. So that's powerful.
Yeah, and guess what? After you use the event letter, you can have that host send it into their local newspaper. So it's like you've killed two birds with one stone. You got an LTE and you've done an event.
100%. And then like go forth in the world. And when you talk to people, like you have your pitch, right? You have your personal story ready to go. So it definitely has a ripple effect beyond the event. Um, and certainly there's a lot to organize. So we're not going to drop this all on the host. This is going to be a group of people who are working on it. Won't necessarily have someone as organized and experienced as you are, Kyle, but Rank the Vote can help simplify things and make it so you don't have to remember everything that Kyle said. Hopefully we can cover it and we'll have this recording. So thank you for sharing that, Kyle. But I want to share with everyone some materials that you can get right off our website right now that can help you with us. So let me share my screen. And are you seeing the Rank the Vote site here? Is everyone seeing what I'm seeing? All right, great.
Yes.
So if you go under Take Action, you will see a training page. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to click right where it says Practice. It's going to take you to the bottom. And then I'm going to click to go to our trainee portal. So I mentioned our letter to the editor workshops. We also do pitch and speaker training, so you can sign up for those right here. And we do more. So one of those things is house parties. And if you click on that, it will open up a folder for you. And say you're a host or you're an organizer and you have a potential host, we want them to understand what we're talking about without being overwhelmed, right? So we have a quick start guide. It's just a one pager that explains, what's the purpose of a house party, generally how it goes. This is nice to share. So just people get the concept and can get excited about it. Then, if they're committed or they want to learn more about it, we have a how to host. So I'll actually click and open that so you can see. This is just a few pages, just gives them a little bit of, ideas, makes them see that they can do this. It does not have all the details that Kyle talked about that. We're going to have a coordinator who's going to work on that and take them through it. And so this is just so that they have a little bit of, what to expect, even up to 12 weeks before. I mean, it's not often that we have that long a timeline. I think, Kyle, you were saying more like maybe 2 or 3 weeks for some of these, perhaps. But, if you have this time, that's kind of a timeline you can work with and a sample schedule. So that's for your hosts. Then for you organizations out there, you need to find hosts, right? So we have some templates here, and in there are some phone scripts, voicemail scripts, email text blurbs if you want to get people excited about it, call up people who said they would host or volunteer in some way, or are supporters in a key area. So that can get you started, or you can use your own, of course, but this can give you a head start on some ideas. And then for the organizers, this is where we dig deep. And so I will open this. I won't share the whole thing, but just to show that if you are organizing, this really takes you through it. There's a checklist, things to consider, links to related documentation that we have, and also this, timeline. So you can march right through. Kyle mentioned keeping track of RSVPs. So here's just a fairly basic spreadsheet, but something to start from if you want. Also for the organizer, as they're working with the host for a guest list and getting a sense of the guests, thinking of maybe what a goal for the room would be. Then you have your list of folks here, and you can do a little bit of background looking around into the people in your party so you know what might appeal to them and what expectations you may have for the room. And for some rooms, it may be students. So, I know we're talking about this as a fundraising event, and often it is, but this is also a way to have more house parties, volunteers, folks who are involved in organizations that may want a presentation. So there can be more asks and more goals of these parties just than, a fundraising number. And also, I want to take a look at the template for the invitations, just to give you some ideas of what social media images might look like and some different themes. Again, it's whatever makes sense for you. Here's an example, in fact, of a Michigan email. Michigan is running a statewide campaign, and Kyle knows all about that. And there's great photos, explanation of the meeting, and email to reply so everyone can get plugged right in and hold those house parties for Michigan. So these images are saved as templates, so you can just click that link right there and then click the button to view the template, open it up, and there they are. So you can borrow from ours, change the wording, change the images, and at least have a jump start on your party. All right, so how's everyone feeling? Are you feeling like you've got a good sense of what these parties are, how to go, how to get started? Again, if you want to get started, you can contact your state organization, contact Rank the Vote, come to our meeting next week. And let's see, I'm going to look because I think we had a couple questions coming in. And one of them was, Kyle, do you have any advice on the flow during the party? So, there's a short presentation and a fundraising pitch, and then kind of how do we transition out of that?
Yeah, so I usually schedule a house party for 90 minutes, but maybe 2 hours, depending on where the event is and who's hosting. But usually the first 30, 45 minutes is social, and then we move to the host. I usually ask the host or one of the co-hosts to welcome guests, thank members of the host committee, and then introduce whoever's giving the presentation. Then that person gives 5 or 7 minute talk and then invites questions. And then you have Q&A for 20, 30 minutes. And then sort of just monitor the room and your time, and then have the person come up to pitch. I think the person doing the talk can invite the person who's giving the pitch to come up and close us out. That person can close, and then usually maybe there's 15, 20, 30 minutes afterwards in the scheduled allotment time for social time again. So I try to keep it succinct. And just it's pretty simple and straightforward.
And I'm glad you mentioned co-hosts again, because of course, if you have co-hosts, they can share the work and they can also invite two separate universes of people to this meeting, right? And that can be great energy. How often have you seen that parties are co-hosts, and are they usually people that know each other that are, friends or colleagues, or is it more just like two people in the same area and you know that you can just combine them for a bigger event?
I would say probably 90% of the time they are friends or at least know each other. And maybe they come together because they're both supporters in their community. Especially in a small community, people know each other. But even like I did an event recently in one of the suburbs in Detroit, and we put two people together that I didn't know. It turns out they knew each other, not well, but they knew each other. So they had a little overlap in their network. So that's not uncommon in this smaller your community. The more overlap there is. So you have to decide, depending on the capacity of your campaign, if you can host, how many house parties there may be interest in having, or that you have the capacity to organize within a community. If you're in a larger city, you will have neighborhood house parties. But if you're in a smaller city, maybe you just have one or you have two, and just deciding what those networks are. And I sometimes I differentiate. Sometimes events are constituency oriented. I work with a doctor who wants to get other doctors engaged, or a lawyer who wants to work with this, get other lawyers excited about it. Sometimes I work with people who are very active in their local Democratic Party, and that's their network. And so that might not be the right event to reach out to local Republicans and chamber members and others to participate. Maybe there needs to be a separate event for that. So I think you have to just do an analysis of who is this person, who are they going to invite, what's their network. At times, sometimes those groups are good to put together, because sometimes those people aren't in a room together, and voila, here's an issue where they can come together and realize that, okay, we need to lower the temperature in our politics, and people deserve to have more choices, and that's not a Republican or a Democrat thing, that's just a people thing. And so you just have to figure out what's right for your community.
We talked about a couple of different locations other than, a house or an apartment. There may be a community space in a neighborhood. You can have it at a restaurant. Have you had parties at any other locations? Anything that surprised you?
I think I've done every possible type of location. I mean, I've done small businesses where they've engaged other small business owners. We talked about the ranked choice beer elections. That sort of originated in Maine. We were trying to find a way to not only sort of make ranked choice voting as American as apple pie and normalize it, but also it was great because we were able to go to breweries where people already were, and so we were bringing people and bringing business for that brewery, but also getting to engage people who otherwise would not have heard or been engaged by our campaign potentially. And also the media loved those. TV reporters love to cover those events, and also newspapers, because it was just so different. So those are great. You can do anything you can do a ranking at, whether it's something with appetizers, at a restaurant, or a meadery or a cidery or a winery, or a pizza joint that wants to do ranked choice trial, pizza slices. I mean, almost any business you can figure out a way to do some sort of ranking in. So it just matters on having the right host drive participation and drive other host committee recruitment. You really need to, you may have to decide that someone's like willing to do an event, but they're not willing to do the work. It may not be worth your while to do an event with them. But it may be better to find the right person who's willing to do the work and roll up their sleeves and make it successful, and pull in that person who's willing to do less work, but is willing to, share the invitation. So sometimes beggars can't be choosers, but when you have the choice, you have to just prioritize and figure out what's the right strategy in a community.
Yeah, absolutely. In that planning at the beginning, I mean, right away you launched into all the things to think about and prepare and to have and get buy-in and, get to know who the host is and their preferences. And also we recommend, besides the speaker, the fundraiser, maybe a separate person. And we also recommend having an assistant at the party too, just to help with the logistics so that the host can relax, talk to their friends, remember that personal narrative that they have, right? And just enjoy what they pull together. So we do want to make sure that we think about covering all the bases and keep it running smoothly. But there is a question, what if you're doing your fundraising and you're not hitting that room goal? There's not a lot of movement. What do you do then to kind of keep it positive and keep the energy up?
Well, I think an event is successful. You can discuss that success at the end of the event, or let people know before they leave. If an event has not reached its goals, I think what I do is oftentimes see who RSVP'd didn't come, follow up with them to let them know they were missed. And here's a link to donate if they haven't donated yet. Do a separate email to everybody who came but didn't give, to ask to sort of just nudge them in the direction of giving, and thank those who did give, and ask, are you interested in doing a house party of your own, or are you willing to do a fundraising email to your friends and family in support of ranked choice voting, or if you have a personal fundraising page capacity through your nation builder or whatever. Like, there's a lot of different things you can do to keep the energy going from an event, and make sure you not only reach but exceed your goals. And when you do that, and find ways to do that even within 2 weeks after an event, you can then share that back with the whole group, and it just builds momentum and energy. There's some times where just events are a flop. I've done events that I thought were going to turn out well, and 4 people showed up. So that's life, right? Like, we all just had those types of things happen. So there's sometimes that's just going to happen, especially when you're doing a lot of house parties. But you just make your best effort and try to get the right people engaged, and build that host committee so that it's not all on that one person, but you are expanding to other people's networks and overlapping networks. And it's like Jane hears from both Sally and Tom. One's a neighbor, one's a coworker, and they're both on the host committee for the event, and it just creates real synergy and excitement. It's like, oh, like, people in my community like this thing, right? I'm hearing about it at work, I'm hearing about it at church, I'm hearing about it at synagogue, I'm hearing about it wherever, right? Like, that's all good stuff, especially in smaller towns and communities.
And when you do these parties, you mentioned your poster boards that you have. So are those standard ones, or like one standard one per state or campaign, or do you have variations that you use?
Sometimes they're different. The one that's like it's the same, like three A, B, and C candidates with 1, 2, 3. Like, I think I've used that for 10 years now with every organization. You can obviously use a more complex ballot, and if you're in a community that maybe pursuing a different ballot design, I mean, that's something you have to consider. Don't false market the grid if you're going to end up with the three column variation like in Minneapolis. So just be honest with people. But that's pretty similar. And then I have to say, over time, I have used more and more examples from Alaska and Maine, where I can actually show that, like, a presidential election used a ranked choice voting ballot, or a U.S. Senate race, and be able to walk them through and to see that. That's like, it's not just no longer like, do you like chocolate mint or strawberry ice cream, which is theoretical, but like, serious elections and at serious levels are being conducted with ranked choice voting across the country. And that, to me, helps to demonstrate that this is a tested, proven, and widely used reform. And it just adds credibility. So you have to think, like, if that's going to be helpful or not for your audience. If your audience is not that political, it probably is less impactful. But the more political your audience is, I think that using those actual examples, and I often will use Maine's 2nd congressional district election from 2028, in which the Republican congressman got the most votes in the first round, but ended up losing because of retabulation of votes and the people who like the independents moving to the Democrat. But then I'll also use Murkowski's example, of winning ranked choice voting as a Republican in Alaska. So there's partisan balance, and there's also showing how you can win. 9 times out of 10, the plurality winner wins, but occasionally the second place finisher shoots up. So,
where do you get that kind of information?
I mean, a lot of the data I use, honestly, is off the websites for Fair Vote or Rank the Vote. A lot of this data is on their websites, and I'll just make a paragraph. I'm happy to share with the Rank the Vote team some of the stuff that I've used in the past, in case people want to glean from it.
So you can actually get the results and how the counts went?
Yeah, a lot of that exists on this. I know, at least on Fair Vote's website. I'm not sure how much sort of history, because Rank the Vote is a newer organization. Fair Vote has sort of a depository of like really old stuff, but you can dig through that, or just, I happen to know, having worked in the space, some of those elections I want to point to. But I also point to you, like, some of Gene Massey in Minnesota, Fair Vote Minnesota. They're an incredible resource. They have stuff like this too. I mean, some of your other state and local partners across the country have some resources.
Could you send me some of that information?
Yeah, I'll give it to Celia and Eileen, and they can put it in their figure out how they want to put it in their folder, just as a potential resource.
Yeah, thank you. We'll have a nice juicy follow-up email and that folder will be growing, I'm sure, especially as we see more of you throw house parties. We'd love to hear back from you too. Um, and let's see. Oh, this was an interesting one. So we talked about co-hosts for the party. Have you ever done a house party that was jointly with another organization?
Yeah. Yes. Uh, I know. I think Anna's on the call. I know that the first ranked choice voting campaign in Maine, we did some events with the League of Women Voters that were co-branded. Uh, on other campaigns, yes, I mean, those opportunities may exist. I mean, sometimes a local Democratic Party wants to sponsor an event or a Libertarian Party, and I'll work with them on a co-branded presentation that speaks specifically to their networks. Um, but yeah, you might have, and then the reality is, right, like hopefully you are building coalitions for your issue, right? Whether it's Black Voters Matter or local libertarians or Republicans or Democrats or Greens or whatever it may be, and pulling those groups in to be part of those events can be really powerful in demonstrating um, the broad reach and support of your cause.
Great, thank you. And I'm remembering as I'm looking at the chat and talking about those real world elections, it helps so much for people to experience voting with RCV. So I love that you had the picture of the ballot. Like if they see the ballot, it can click like, oh, I get it. I just fill it out. People rank things all the time, right? Very easy. And then if they get a chance to experience it either with a fun election or again, know your audience, maybe they would love to do a straw poll of, the next candidate for senator of your state or anything like that or local office, right? And there are many ways that we can do mock elections like that. We can do them on paper. There are online elections. There are some online elections that are already open and have plenty of votes. So you can have your guests join in the election and then show the visualization and it's going to go multiple rounds. So you get a really nice visualization. So we have links to all of that too. And also, especially for these real world scenarios, yes, Fair Vote absolutely catalogs everything. So they have that data. And also, there's a website, RC Viz. It's actually used by some cities as their official visualization for their elections, but it also has user uploaded data for real live elections too. So I'll include that in the email. You can find some of them through the menu there, but also if you do a search for your election and RCViz, often it's there and you can step through the rounds and that often gets the conversation flowing for sure. Yeah. And talking about the what ifs from round one to the end and just thinking about, what that means for the voters and the candidates and the next election. All right. Let's see. We're having some requests for your contact information, Kyle. So if you're comfortable with sharing that, you can let us know.
Yeah, I
But
popped in the chat box before, and it's also in the Google Doc that I shared a link to in the spreadsheet. Yeah. I just a couple things I also mentioned, like I'm kind of low tech unless I'm presenting to a younger crowd. And just recognize if you are doing tech, sometimes technology doesn't work. And so, if you are doing a lot of presentations, having the poster boards in the back of your car as a backup is not a bad idea from personal experience. And I'll even do like still even that when I started doing ranked choice voting, there was no apps. There was one, but it didn't function properly. So now those exist, and that's great. So people can pull out their phones and do it. Especially if you're like a Rotary Club, like that's easy. But not all the house parties that's conducive. So you might just print out a little paper ballot, fill it out, and walk people through the results. So you have to decide what's right for your crowd. Sometimes on the ranked choice ballot, I'll actually do make little black circles with felt sticky, so people can actually take this and rank the candidates and actually see, like, especially if they're just like totally a new concept. The idea of putting the little dot in the box is like, oh, okay, I get that. Like just little things like that can make a difference. And also, I would say if you do the events, if you've got social media too, these are great places to get not only photos, always take photos. And those of us who work on efforts like this always forget to take photos. Take photos. And also, one of the things I think is fun to do if you're moving towards a campaign at some point, if there's a volunteer who's got a phone, is willing to be responsible at house parties for like trying to pull 2 or 3 or 4 people aside to do a little video testimonial about why they support ranked choice or whatever the issue is, and you can easily just like clip that and post it on your social. It's more, and have that person post it themselves. It's just good stuff, right? It's regular average citizens talking about why they think this is important, not necessarily politicians saying why they think it's important, but real people. So that's always something you can do as well.
I love those felt dots, making it really like physical and immediate. That definitely can help a lot to make something conceptual, very concrete in the moment. So that is brilliant. Um, and also, good point that, the tech may not always be available, may not always be reliable. We always recommend checking out the space ahead of time if you can, just to try to get ahead of any potential problems. Make sure if you play a video, have some closed captioning for folks that would need that just to make it easier to understand. Check speakers, all these things, right? Just to make sure that everyone can participate fully in it. But since we're talking about tech, we got a question coming in. Do you have a favorite online ballot tool? We have a doc that compares some of them. Do you have a favorite, or do you prefer to do the real life physical stuff?
Virginia has an electronic
Sorry, guys.
Oh,
ballot for the absentee ballot.
excellent. Yep, that's it. We want everyone to participate who can. So that's a great example. And sorry, Kyle, you were on mute a little bit there.
Oh
So
yeah, that's okay. Do I have a favorite? No, I'm pretty low tech. I know that Rank My Vote uses one pretty consistently. It's an ongoing election, candy election. So it's just, I, I would lean on Rank the Vote to advise you on which ones to use for their best suited for you.
and can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing in Michigan?
Sure. So I'm the campaign strategist for Rank My Vote. For those who aren't familiar, Rank My Vote was founded out of the movement for nonpartisan redistricting in Michigan. There was a 2028 ballot measure campaign brought forward by some of you know or have heard of Katie Fahey. Started with a Facebook post and ended up evolving into a campaign that won nonpartisan redistricting or gerrymandering reform in Michigan. And out of that movement was born the ranked choice voting effort, following the win in Maine and the energy from that. And then, of course, Alaska galvanized it more. And so Rank My Vote's been working for more than 5 years to do voter education. It's Rank My Vote's won ranked choice voting or proportional ranked choice voting in 4 cities in the last 5 years. So now there was one previous, but there are now 5 municipalities in Michigan that have RCV or PRCV. Unfortunately, they're all waiting to implement because the state has been a barrier. So Rank My Vote has been building toward a statewide campaign and is now in the process of gathering signatures to place an amendment on the November 2026 ballot that would adopt ranked choice voting for statewide and federal elections, as well as allow local implementation of ranked choice voting and proportional ranked choice voting, and adopt enshrine into the Constitution a series of other voting reforms that exist in statute but are not in the Constitution. And Michigan has a long history of voting rights work, and so we incorporate that component into that. So it's an exciting effort, and there's over 1,800 volunteers across the state who are circulating petitions. The campaign has done over 500 town halls and speakers bureau presentations since the beginning of the year. So lots of grassroots energy and excitement and motivation there. So if you know folks in Michigan, please tell them about the ranked choice voting effort there and direct them to rankmyvote.org to learn more and sign up. We always want more people engaged. It's a big state. We need a lot of people rolling up their sleeves and doing the work.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're doing an amazing job over there in Michigan, and so exciting to see another state move forward with this. And so if anyone on this call, you may be in Michigan, you may have friends in Michigan, but you can also hold a house party to benefit Michigan. So, encourage you all to do that too. Definitely want to support all the great work you're doing there, Kyle.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. We're having some tech questions for you, Kyle, here. So here we go. Do you have PowerPoint or video materials that demonstrate the process or give background on it? So I think this question from Bob, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, I think is about the house party process, not necessarily the presentation where you talk about the process of RCV.
You mean putting together the house party?
Yeah.
Like
Do you have any materials
yeah,
on that?
I may have some stuff. I'll send it to Celia and see what I have that's usable for you guys to share sort of best practices. And you're welcome to look at that. Yeah, I'll package some of that stuff for you guys.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, if you think of Kyle going around with his event box, the Google Drive link that we have is kind of your everything up to the event box. So Rank the Vote has resources on all of these things, and also on if you're thinking, oh, I've never set up a mock election before. That's a piece of information that's in there and walks you through it. So definitely encourage everyone to look at the documents we send as a follow-up, because that's a little bit of what we do is trying to make it as easy as possible for everyone.
Yeah, no point in reinventing the wheel. So
Where can I find a link? Will this recording be online somewhere?
Yeah, so we'll be on Rank the Vote's YouTube channel. So give us a day or two and it will be up there. And we'll also send a follow-up email with a direct link, but feel free to go to our YouTube channel at any time. We have a bunch of videos up there, long and short. We have one with Katie from not too long ago, Katie Fahey of The People. So Kyle, thanks for mentioning her. And hopefully lots of interesting content there for you all. So please give it a look and a share.
If you want to look at the absentee ballot in Virginia, the electronic absentee ballot, you go to the Virginia Department of Elections and under accessible voting, their page on accessible voting,
Mhm.
it tells you all about it. It is available to the print disabled. And I'm also working with Rev Up Virginia
Mhm.
and the Department of Elections to see why when you use the absentee electronic ballot, you have to print and you have to download and print it, and some people don't have printers. So, so I'm working on a way with Rev Up Virginia and the Department of Elections to see if we can have a way in Virginia to submit the ballot electronically.
Well, thank you so much for your work on this. I'm glad that there are links on the site, but it definitely needs to be easier, it sounds like. So thank you for your great work there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kyle, I am inspired.
yeah, I just wanted I'll let you guys close, but I just wanted to thank everybody for being on the call and happy to be a resource. And I also just wanted to say what a tremendous job Rank the Vote does as a leader in our space and how different it is to have you guys around. When I started this work, you didn't exist. You know, it's sort of born out of the Massachusetts effort that followed Maine. And so that the idea that you're able to package these resources and materials and software and everything else and provide them to folks across the country to engage makes a huge difference. Again, like I said, it's not reinventing the wheel. And then fortunately that happened for too long in our space. So I just wanted to give you guys kudos and thank everybody for supporting Rank the Vote and being a part of the movement.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us, Kyle, and all the work that you're doing. And absolutely, all of us working together is what's gonna make this work. And with house parties, we can make it fun too. So thanks, everyone. I hope to see some people next week and would love to hear about the parties that you have. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Mhm.